Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. My name is Callie, and this is another weekend of clarinets, cats, and coffee. Isn't that right, Luke? In today's video, I am going to share a few tips with you on how to upgrade your old clarinet to give it new life. Before we jump into that, I want to thank my patrons and channel members for your support over the years. It really means a lot to me and to Luke. And if you love my content and you're not already a supporter, be sure to check out the perks that I have offered to channel members and patrons, and I hope to see more of you there. Okay, let's jump right into this. So let's say you've got a clarinet that is starting to show its age. One way you can tell that an instrument needs, at the very least, a tune-up is if it's not responding like it used to. So it's a little bit harder to play, harder to get notes out than it used to be. Another telltale sign is that the tuning is getting a little bit strange. So maybe you're playing a lot sharper or a lot flatter than you used to. That's a good sign. Or particular notes in the instrument or even entire regions of the instrument may be going very low or very high compared to how it used to play. And these kinds of changes in a clarinet can happen gradually over time as the wood changes and as pads get worn in and as spring tension changes. So the first thing that I would suggest, if you have an old clarinet and it just doesn't have as much pep in it as it used to, first thing you should do is go get your instrument overhauled. A really good repair technician is going to replace your pads and put all new pads in. And I'm a huge fan of synthetic pads. I really like Omni pads. They're very soft, they get a really good seal, and I've had them in my instruments since 2005, and I've only ever had to replace one, and that is it. So once they're in, they're good for quite a long time. Now, every so often, my repair technician has to make sure that they're sealing, because of course, the wood changes, things change, and you want to make sure that little leaks and things aren't present in the instrument. Okay, so you get an overhaul, they'll put new pads in, they'll check to make sure there are no leaking pads, things like that. They'll also condition the wood if it needs it. On a really old clarinet, the wood is going to look dry, and you know it's dry when it starts to look kind of chalky. And so what my repair technician will do is he'll condition the wood. Sometimes he'll even have to put it in a humidity chamber for a while just to kind of recondition the wood. And this is something that he has done every so often on my Buffet RC Prestige clarinet, which at this point is 38 years old. And every time I get it back, it plays like new again. So that's a really huge thing that a good repair tech can do if a clarinet needs it. And the last thing is they'll check it all over and they'll replace springs. If springs aren't operating properly, when you blow through the instrument, it can cause your pads to open just a tiny bit, and that can affect the response of your instrument. It could even make you sound really squeaky. They'll replace pins that need to be replaced. They'll do everything. So it's really important to really just keep even your new instruments in good repair, but an old clarinet may not actually be dead. It may just need a really good, loving dose of repair technician overhaul. Okay, so let's say you have your instrument back and you're playing and you're like, man, I don't know, this really just isn't quite to the standard that it used to be. I would recommend upgrading your mouthpiece. When was the last time you got a new mouthpiece? If it's been more than, 5, 6, 7 years, maybe try out some new mouthpieces. And where are you going, buddy? Oh, he's gonna sit in the sun. He's right here next to me. So maybe try out some new mouthpieces and see if that gives a little bit new life to your instrument. Now, let's say you're like, no, Callie, I got a new mouthpiece just a couple years ago and I really like it. The next thing I would check is the barrel of the clarinet. Now that's the part of the instrument right closest to where all the spit comes out, and people say condensation, but come on, you still get spit in your instrument, right? And if anything gets blown out on a clarinet, I'm gonna say it's probably the barrel. And so I would recommend trying out a barrel of the same length, maybe even by the same manufacturer, just a newer version of it, and try it out. Now, there are other barrel manufacturers besides the actual maker of your instrument that you can try out. Just make sure that you can return the barrel if it doesn't work out. You want to make sure the tuning is better on a new barrel. You want to make sure that the evenness of scale is better, and you also want to make sure that the ease of blowing is what you are aiming for. So it can be a little bit of a challenge to know exactly what you want, but a good place to start is to just check your instrument with its current barrel with a tuner to see where things are landing, and if they're outrageously sharp in one register or flat in another, that's something that you would want to test whenever you're trying new barrels out. All right, and then the last thing on my list here is upgrading your bell. I've never been a huge bell person on clarinets, but there are people who swear by them, and I'm sure they can make a difference, right? On the lower clarion and the lower register of the clarinet, it can add a little bit more focus. It can change the tuning slightly and give a little bit more resonance to the instrument. So while I have never purchased a different bell for my clarinets, that doesn't mean that you can't. So I would say give those a try. But again, just like barrels, mouthpieces, anything that you test out with your clarinet, make sure that you can return it if it doesn't work for you. All right, so those are my tips for giving an old clarinet new life. So do not despair. Chances are your instrument is probably not blown out quite yet. So if you test out some different accessories, you will likely get the sound that you are looking for. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, a good week next week, and as always, happy practicing.